Are there commonalities in sales positions? Andrew Aston, Managing Director of Morgan Consulting, shares with us his views in the recruitment industry. As well as being Director of Vitae Partners and Quantum Robotics, he has a diverse range of experience that he can shed a light on. Thank you very much for your time today to be interviewed on our conversation series. I want to have a conversation with you about salesperson characteristics and the commonalities of sales positions and salespeople. So just to start, Andrew, what is your perception of the sales function at this moment?
Well, I run a sales organisation myself. And whilst I used to be a CFO, for the last 20 years, I've been working in recruitment, which is primarily a sales function. So I think it's very important. I mean, every organisation, particularly B2B, not so much B2C these days. I think some products can sell themselves, if you like. But B2B, never before has it been more important to have a salesperson, particularly to not only sell your brand and your wares, but to maintain relationships with clients and build trust. So I think it's never been more important than right now, I don't think.
Yeah, we absolutely agree with you. So in your experience in the recruitment industry, as well as your business experience in general, do you see that there are commonalities amongst sales roles, regardless of sort of across the industries?
I think so. I mean, more and more organisations are hiring based on key competencies, really. It's things like passion and hunger and drive and motivation and, ability to pick up the telephone and those sorts of raw skills, if you like, I think transcend all industries and all products and solutions. So I think more and more, I think perhaps always organisations have been looking for those key competencies when they look for salespeople. And most sales position descriptions that we see from organisations when they brief us are all fairly, they cover most of the necessary skills and requirements. So they're fairly generic in some ways.
Would you?
I think the thing that varies probably only is maybe the product or solution that they're selling.
So in amongst those skills then, would there be a handful of core skills that you see repeating itself all the time?
Yeah, well, I think the ones I mentioned, so people that are motivated, driven, hungry, persistent, good at influencing, and more good at educating clients about their product or solution. So they're probably the key competencies I think that you need to be a good salesperson, and that's what employers are looking for.
Yeah, okay. So how would you, with those skills, how would you judge whether or not a person has it or not? I.e., their hunger. How do you pick it in your interview?
I think it's very common that salespeople typically hire salespeople. So if you're reporting into a sales manager, they're normally a salesperson themselves. So they go on intuition and gut feel. When they've met someone, they look at qualities that they probably have themselves. They also look at qualities within their existing team. So it's an instinctive, intuitive process, mostly, I think. Obviously, the other key element that needs to be involved is reference checking and validating someone's skills and experience based on their past track record. I think salespeople are very good at coming and selling themselves and what they can do in the future and what their potential is. But I think that their track record is always the best indicator of their performance, in my opinion. And I couldn't emphasize more the importance of really thorough reference checking, and most organisations do them. I think probably most organisations need to do more and be a little bit more thorough. So they're the two sort of things I think organisations need to do and do.
So, Andrew, do you believe, just trying to unpack that a little bit more, do you believe that salespeople are then matched to job positions, or do you think organisations, businesses try and squeeze positions into the people that they've got. Do you know what I mean? Or the people that are available.
I'd say 90% of the time, the sales position is fairly static. It doesn't really allow for too much flexibility. And so you're looking for a person that can fit the role. Maybe 10% of the time you come across, and we had this example just yesterday, an employer meets someone who just completely falls in love with them for whatever reason. They might be an outstanding culture fit, or they bring some new things to the sales team that perhaps some of their other reps don't. And so they see an opportunity, and to their credit, they create a role for someone who's so outstanding. They just create a role, or they'll bend a role a little bit to flex it so that it'll fit the candidate. But I would say that's probably 10 or maybe 20% of the time at most. More often than not, they look for what they've always had in the past, and it's a fairly rigid set of requirements. And yeah, the candidates have to fit that.
So what do you think, Andrew, in your time recruiting salespeople, are some of the difficult things on recruiting salespeople? Like, what are some of the biggest barriers you have finding either the right person, or is there an obvious issue that is out there in recruiting salespeople?
I think salespeople can be very good at selling, and they sell themselves. And so you can meet people and they're charismatic, they're very good communicators, and sometimes you've got to wonder and I guess make sure that you interrogate them in a way, or interview them and screen them in a way that validates that what they say is the truth. You've got to make sure that they can deliver on what they say they can do. And again, I talked a lot about the importance of reference checking. There are other assessments you can do for salespeople around call reluctance and those sorts of things. But generally, it's making sure that a person can deliver on what they say they can do, and most importantly, what the role requires. And it's really an interesting phenomenon that I've seen is that salespeople, I'm not sure if it's because of their very nature, but salespeople can be on it and they can also be off it. And sometimes it's a cyclical thing. It might be a stage in their life. It might be, for example, a perfectly brilliant salesperson who has a track record of success may, for whatever reason, have a personal circumstance that influences their energy levels or their ability to concentrate. It might be divorce, it might be an illness in the family or financial struggles. So those things are really, really hard to determine often. And so a perfectly good person one day may suddenly, not be quite as high performing. So that's an interesting area that I think creates challenge for employers. But generally speaking, I think it keeps coming back to that gut feeling and intuition in the end. I mean, I can't tell you how many businesses in my 20 years, how many businesses have tried to automate the recruitment process and use software and AI and all these other things to try and identify, which salespeople are going to be successful. But 90% of the time, it comes down to interviewing them and going, the hiring decision maker, having the right, doing their homework certainly, but also ultimately having the intuition and gut feel that person's going to be successful.
So, Andrew, just as a last departing question, what do you think then is the future of sales? Is sales still going to require people in the future?
Well, look, I think I'll answer this two ways. I think some products sell themselves. You think about, I've got an iPhone sitting here, right? So this product realistically could be sold out of a vending machine. You don't really need a human being. It sells itself. It's a quality product. And it's really just a case of which one you want and which color, right? So B2C, I think consumer products probably, you could argue that an e-marketing program or vending machine or whatever it might be would be enough to sell. I think B2C is a very, very different story. And I think also solutions, when you're selling solutions that aren't just out of the box products. So I really don't see a lot of change. People talk about technology is going to change things and disrupt this and disrupt that. I mean, I wish I had $1 for every time someone's told me that, Seek or LinkedIn or something that's going to destroy the recruitment industry. AI is coming, you better watch out. It's a nonsense. Our industry really fundamentally, and I've been in the game for 22 years in recruitment. I'm on the board of a robotics company. As you know, I'm a co-founder of a professional services business around IT, program management and cloud and digital transformation. So I'm very, very across, transformation industries and the threat or the opportunity of disruption and transformation. And I think in sales, it's very, very difficult to replace the human element. It's all about relationships. It's all about people buying from people. If someone has sold to me successfully in the past and they sold me, I don't know, a big pen, and then they're ringing me up 3 years later and they've got some other widget they want to sell me, I'll listen to them because I know them and I trust them and I bought them from them in the past. And so I think it's the people element ultimately. These other things, they're just tools. I don't see them as threats. And I think realistically, I don't see the sales function, particularly the human element, really changing that much moving forward. I don't think there's much change around sales as perhaps other things, and certainly not as much as people would want to have you think.
Andrew, wow, thank you so much for your time. I mean, that's the end of all my questions. I probably could sit here and chat with you about sales for the rest of the day. But Andrew, thank you so much. Your expertise in recruitment, as well as your directorships in other businesses, probably have lent itself to quite diverse answers and things that we need to be thinking about in the sales function and for the future. So thank you again, Andrew.
Pleasure. Nice to speak to you.